Well, hello there. So this video is free response prep question number 1 from Unit 9. This unit is, as I said multiple times, is really just putting all the pieces together. So the FRQ preps in this unit are very helpful for you as you're starting to get ready for the AP test. So there's actually, I think I did 4 of them. So I hope that you get a chance to take a look at some of these. So first one says, assume the U.S. economy is in a short-run equilibrium with the actual unemployment rate above the natural rate. So right off the bat, you should be identifying, is the economy in an expansion, a recession, or long-run equilibrium? And here it's telling us we're not in long run, we're in a recession, right? The actual unemployment rate's above the natural rate. So we got to write, this is a tip for you every time, just write recession, right? Write it on there. It says, draw a correctly labeled graph for the short-run Phillips curve, the long-run curve, label the current point as point P. So we have here the unemployment percent and the inflation percent. We know we need a long run curve, LRPC, and that's Nuru. And we have a short run curve, and it tells us label the current short run point, point P. So where is a recession? Well, a recession is high unemployment and lower price levels. So we should be anywhere from basically anywhere from that intercept all the way down to here. So we'll just pick a point in the middle. It says, assuming no policy actions are taken, so this is part B, will the short run Phillips curve shift left, right, or remain the same in the long run? Explain. And this is actually asking you to connect multiple things in this class. So the economy is in a recession and no policy actions are taken. Remember that the economy will self-correct, right? So think about if you had, and this is, you don't have to draw this part, but you had a aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. And if we're in a recession, you have aggregate demand and you have short run aggregate supply like that, right? You're in a recession. So what will happen in the long run is that folks who are way out here in this unemployment rate that's very high, those folks will eventually begin to accept lower wages and lower input costs. And so short run aggregate supply will shift to the right. Now we know that IRAP, the shifters, resource costs of one are the shifters for the other. And now I drew these kind of backwards here, but if SRAS is shifting to the right, then that means SRPC is shifting to the left because they move opposite each other. And just so you know, on an AP test, it's totally okay to do one of these, right? If you're like, okay, the SRAS, that's this hand, right? The SRAS moves, what do we say? It moves to the right. So that means the SRPC has to be moving the other way as well. So we kind of moving back. And when we move back, we're actually going to kind of shift back over to here. So it's that diagonal movement still occurring. It doesn't ask for a point, right? But if we had, that would be point P, the same over here. And this is the kind of equilibrium point, right? That's where we're kind of going back to. Now it says explain. Now what I've actually drawn here would be perfectly acceptable as an explanation. Like what I just drew, you could just do that and you've explained it. Another way to do it that's shorter than drawing it, if you have it in your head, is to say to yourself, well, part B, the SRPC will shift left because the SRAS increased. That's all you have to say. And so if you're good on that part, then you're okay. That's really where they kind of want you to make that connection point. All right, part C, if the Fed wants to lower unemployment, what expansionary open market operation should it do? It should buy bonds to make the money supply bigger. Buy bonds. At this point, you've got to be able to very quickly make the connections between what's the policy response to if they're in a recession. They buy bonds, make the money supply bigger, pushes the interest rate down, consumption and investment rises. So part D says, how will that affect each of the following? And so D1, well, if they buy bonds, it makes that federal funds rate go down, right? So the supply of money goes up. Therefore, we would say the interest rate goes down. And that's an acceptable explanation, right? Because what you've done is you've kind of linked here the buying bonds. You've said now the money supply is bigger and the interest rate goes down. That's kind of all you have to do to explain that. D2, right? So I probably should have put D1 right there, says the real interest rate in the short run. And what we would expect, so we would say if the supply of money is going up, we can say the supply of loanable funds should increase, and at least in the short run, right? And so therefore, there should be a decrease in the real interest rate. And that's kind of the same idea of saying, well, the supply of money can influence the supply of loanable funds, and then that, of course, affects the real interest rate. And then part E says, given your answer on D2, what's the effect on real GDP in the short run? Well, the whole point, right, of why they did this is to try to lower unemployment. And so we would say if the real interest rate goes down, we'd say consumption and investment goes up and aggregate demand goes up. And that is real GDP, right? That tells us the output is rising, which is equal to GDP are rising, right? So it's basically saying, when the aggregate demand rises, the output levels are going to rise. And this is a sufficient explanation because you're really just linking this interest rate change you identified in D2 to what the rest of the story is. All right, so hopefully that helped you. See you next time.